So I was just looking at some backpacking gear, you know, checking out some sites online and just reading a bunch of emails I was getting from a bunch of different companies. And a lot of the backpacking gear that I saw was just like plain ridiculous. And I thought, hey, video idea, let's talk about some ridiculous backpacking gear. As we talk about ridiculous backpacking gear, if this is any gear that you use, please don't think that you're incorrect or you're wrong. This is literally just my stupid Canadian opinion. And I just kind of wanted to put it on the internet because that's what I do on YouTube. The first thing we're going to talk about is this thing called the Selk bag, or kind of the wearable sleeping bag. Now, if you've never heard of the Selk bag before, just picture a sleeping bag and a onesie making some babies, and that's what you're going to get. Personally, I'm a big believer in, you know, a piece of gear like your quilt or your sleeping bag should only be used for that purpose. That is one of your vital pieces of gear that you really shouldn't be exposing to any potential wear and tear or damage outside of your shelter. I know a lot of people like bringing their sleeping bag or their quilt out and, you know, sitting on a ridge or, you know, sitting around the fire, and just there's so much potential for, you know, rips and burn holes and just things that can go wrong with your sleeping bag or your quilt that you don't want to have happen. And having something that's wearable and, you know, you're going to put it on and wear it around camp, just so much potential for issues. They're also really, really heavy. To get one that's rated in the 40s or like plus 6 degrees Celsius, these things are like well over 3 pounds. My backpacking quilt weighs just over a pound, so I'm not going to add an extra 2 pounds to my sleep system just to wear my sleeping bag around camp. It just, I don't know, to me that just kind of seems dumb. But where this really boggles my mind is when I think about how this is actually going to keep you warm. And I think about winter time, and I think specifically my hands. When you think about, you know, the kind of gloves you're going to wear to keep your hands warm in the winter time, mittens, which are, you know, like one pocket that covers all your fingers, are going to keep your hands a lot warmer than gloves that individually seal off each finger. You know, when your hands are together, or like in a sleeping bag or quilt, when your body is together, you're going to have more heat output and more heat retained on the inside. So when it comes to this Selk bag, you know, you're relying on, say, your left arm to just keep your left arm warm. You're not going to have as much body heat transfer throughout as you would with a sleeping bag or quilt. This next one is one that I get emailed to me quite often from a bunch of different various companies. It's these dog water bottles. If you picture like a hard plastic bottle with a hinge here at the top and a separate piece that slides down the side, and you flip it over, and then you're supposed to hold it and squirt some water into it, and it just kind of is this like, it's like a small dinner plate type thing. Why would I use something that weighs 3/4 of a pound when I could use a simple smart bottle and a DCF dog food bowl, and that weighs like 1.5 ounces? To me, it's just kind of a no-brainer. It's also really, really easy for me to find water for my dog to just naturally drink when we're out in the backcountry. You know, Wanda will drink from any stream or lake or river that we come to. And up here in the Rockies, we are fortunate enough to have water sources in large abundance. So honestly, don't even really usually carry water for my dog. But, you know, just something like a simple smart bottle weighs significantly less. And honestly, it is really, really easy to train a dog to literally just kind of drink the water that you pour slowly out of a regular water bottle. But it's not just water solutions for a dog that I think are pretty ridiculous. I get emails from various Asian manufacturers wanting me to check out their pump style water filters. If you go on Amazon and just do a quick search of survival water filter, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I have used pump filters in the past, very, very briefly. I did not keep them for very long. There are so many moving parts and gaskets and just things that can break and go wrong with a pump style water filter. I personally don't think that they are a good option to carry with you out in the backcountry at all. I mean, if it was like the last filter that you could find and you absolutely needed one, sure. But there are so many better options out there that are just less moving parts, a lot easier to use. And besides all those issues, one thing I absolutely hated about having a pump style filter is you have to sit at your water source and filter your water. And they're not overly fast. Some of these filters take like 2 to 3 minutes to do a liter of water. You know, you're just sitting there at the creek, just pumping away. It's honestly just one of the most annoying things out there. When you compare it to something, you know, like a Platypus Quick Draw, where you can just screw this on top of a bottle, or, you know, one of those Platypus soft bags, or even a Canuck Vecto bag, and you can filter a liter of water in like 30 seconds through something like this. Far more efficient, far easier to use. Way less working parts, way less that could go wrong with a filter like this. pump filters suck. I honestly, I don't know why people use them anymore. Now this next one is kind of two parts because it has to do with cold soaking. And if you know anything about me, you know that I am not a believer in cold soaking whatsoever. Been there, tried it. I will carry the weight of fuel and a stove every single time. Eating cold, rehydrated food on the trail absolutely sucks. I get that some people out there are far bigger gram weenies than I am, that they can't even carry a stove, and they're gonna try and convince anyone that will listen to them that cold soaking your food is the way to go. But as I said, I've been there, done that. It absolutely sucks. And it's gone to the extreme where, you know, a company like Gossamer Gear, a well-respected company, is making this thing called the Crotch Pot. When I first heard about this, I thought it was an absolute joke. I thought it was like an April Fool's thing, but nope, it's an actual thing. If you go and do a quick Google search of Gossamer Gear Crotch Pot, you're probably gonna have your mind blown like mine was. It's essentially just like a DCF pouch with two little carabiners on it that clip onto your belt loops. So you take your food, you get it ready to rehydrate, and you put it in this thing called the Crotch Pot, and it dangles right in front of your crotch. And the premise behind it is the heat from your crotch is going to warm up your food and it's not going to be cold. Is this where we're going with ultralight backpacking? Is this where we are? We're at this ridiculous level where we're using our crotch to heat up our food. For one, gross. For two, just absolutely ridiculous. One of those pieces of gear I saw, like I said, I thought it was an April Fool's thing. Nope, this is a real thing, and apparently people are buying it because they're still making it. I think we're on number 5 now, and this is one that I have seen a few times out in the backcountry, and I've always shaken my head. And it's one of those things that, you know, is made by a reputable company, Sea to Summit. I guess it's marketed very well, but it's the Sea to Summit kitchen sink. And it literally just is a large water carrying thing. It's one of those gimmicky things that just doesn't really work. The very first time I actually saw one of these out on trail, I was doing the Skyline Trail in Jasper National Park. And the campsites there have really nice picnic tables, and somebody had one of those and they gathered up a bunch of water, brought it to the picnic table, set it down, and then literally all the water spilled out of this thing and soaked everybody's stuff that was on the table. It got people wet who were sitting at the table. Just an absolute failure. It's just an absolute waste of money. I honestly, I don't get it. I'm sure you've had enough of me rambling about backpacking gear I think is ridiculous, and obviously I don't think that anybody should buy. But if you are interested in some backpacking gear that I do think you should buy and I do think is worth taking the time to look into, check out either of these videos here. I'm sure you will find something in there that you will enjoy. And as always, guys, I am Matty. Thank you so very much for watching, and I will see you on the next one. Now, you can't see this, but in behind you guys is a trampoline, and I'm going to do some jumping.